Hi everyone, it's Mari here from Mari Clark Creations. Thank you so much for joining me here on my channel. I'm going to do a little walkthrough of the products that I have from the American Crafts April and Ivy collection. This is a stamp set that includes, I think, 7 different stamps. It's a gorgeous little set. It's a small set, but it's really sweet, and it's going to be really great for both scrapbooking and card making. I bought a couple sets of these small puffy alpha stickers. I love the size of these, and they're going to pair really nicely with the largest alphas that are offered. There's a couple sets of ephemera that you can purchase. One has more journaling spots and the other one has more of the icons. So I bought a couple of sets of the journaling spots and then a set of the icons. I actually think I might go back and buy another set of these because they're gorgeous, and I absolutely love the combination of vellum, and there's gold foiling in there, which is beautiful. I also purchased the enamel dots and hearts, and then this is the larger alpha set that is a really beautiful kind of a yellow gold glitter. There's a couple of different types of fonts in there, and there's numbers as well. Love it. I got a couple of sets of the 6x12 sticker sheets. I love these, and they are gold foiled as well. Beautiful. And I do apologize here, I think my camera is struggling to focus. I really love the 6x8 paper pad, and I usually buy the 6x8 when I purchase a collection. The papers are gorgeous. You get 2 of each, and I think there's 36 sheets in this pad if I'm not mistaken. Beautiful papers. I'm just going to do a quick flip through. You can see there's some cut aparts in here, and then all of the gorgeous patterns that are part of this beautiful April and Ivy collection. It's just such a stunning collection. It's really pretty for spring, but I really love kind of like the jewel tones. It's a really different color palette, but it's absolutely stunning. So love those plaids, the florals. It's all just really great. So gorgeous. And then I do have a bunch of the 12x12 papers. I don't think I purchased every single paper in the collection, but I do have quite a few of them. I think this bird paper, I bought 3 of those. It's kind of got a Nordic look to it. I loved it. Then of course there's some cut aparts. Again, the florals. There's some beautiful butterflies. This paper here will be just perfect for doing some fussy cutting. Really love that graphic stripe on the back, and this graphic paper with a rainbow. Really pretty tone on tone green floral. This paper is everything. I love it. This floral is absolutely stunning. So pretty. Love the colors, and then that plaid on the back, which is so pretty. This green tone on tone, really gorgeous, and then this stripe, which is beautiful, and then a 2x2 cut apart sheet. I really love fussy cutting and using my circle punches for those types of papers. Oh my gosh, the colors are so pretty. The patterns are absolutely delicious in this collection. So this one really gives me 70s vibes for sure. Love that. And then there's that really pretty bird paper again. This one might be my favorite, that black with the floral. I think I might go back and get another sheet of that. And then more doubles here. Of course, that's my favorite. And then this one here, the black with the cream again, and that graphic on the back. So just beautiful papers. So excited about this collection and the different possibilities for creating all types of projects, whether it be a mini album or whatever. Then I did get this as a freebie from scrapbook.com. It's a really cute little snowman with a shadow die. Love that so much. Now I'm starting off here with some Vicky Bouton Foundations paper, as I often do for a project. And I do have some Crafters Companion watercolor palettes. These are shimmering watercolors. They are gorgeous. I am going to link these up in the description box below. These, if you do not have anything like this, are amazing. They're a really great price point, and they are perfect for doing simple mixed media backgrounds for any type of project, whether it's card making or scrapbooking. I'm actually going to use this piece of plastic that comes in the container to add some pigment onto my foundations paper here. So I do have some pigment already on there. It's watered down a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and transfer that onto the foundations paper just by pressing on that, and I'm going to do that repeatedly here on this foundations paper to create a little bit of interest on this paper. And of course, a lot of this is going to get covered up. But what I love about doing this type of technique is that it's just going to provide that little bit of interest behind, like in the background. It's going to be really subtle. So you can see the really pretty shimmer and shine there. And what I wanted to do was use mostly kind of that combination of the teals and greens here for this. I'm just going with that one color in the background, and that's going to pick up on those tones that are in the pattern paper. So here you can just see I'm adding that to the packaging. I'll add a little bit of water there, and then I will go ahead and just transfer that onto the paper. I will do that repeatedly until I have most of this, a little bit of the pigment on most of the paper. And this is just a really easy process. It's really fun. I would give that just a good press and let it sit there and let it soak into the paper. Otherwise, it will just continue to stick to the plastic. And I'm going to add a little bit of water and let the rest of that pigment just drip off to create some interesting drips and drops. And you know, you could use this technique for a background for a project where it's going to show more, where it's not going to get covered up as well. And that's why I wanted to take the time to just kind of show you this technique. Even though a lot of this is going to get covered up, it's just kind of, it might be a good time for you to just take a look at this technique and see if this is something that you want to try. This is not a new technique. It's been around. People have been doing this on their projects, including me, for quite some time. And it's a technique that I still really enjoy using on my projects. So here you can just see I've grabbed a finer brush here, and this is just going to allow me to do some really fine splatter. So I'm just using, that's a Crafter's Companion palette there, that kind of flower shaped container there that I'm using for the pigment. I will link up to that as well. So I just continue that with that paper and let that dry. I've set that off to dry. And now I'm going to take the 4 papers that I'm choosing for my layout here, and I'm cutting 2-inch strips on each one of these 4 papers. So I chose a floral, 2 florals and 2 plaids, and the plaids match, each have a matching floral. So you can see that that really pretty kind of pinks and peach plaid matches that really pretty floral that has the pinks and peaches. And then that teal with the birds really goes nicely with this teal plaid. So I cut a 2-inch strip off each of those papers. I'll set those aside, and now I'm going to be using these papers over top of my white background to add my interest and detail behind my photographs. So really love how these coordinate together. I think they're really super pretty. And I am actually going to eventually here change out my map that I'm working on so that I can have a better idea of what my background is going to look like. So here I'm just kind of getting an idea of the spacing of these 2-inch strips on my white base. So I'm just going to kind of play around with them here until I'm happy with how much space I want to put between them, and just get an idea of what order I want to put the papers in and so on. Now at this point, I'm realizing that I'm going to need a lot more of this pigment on the paper. And so I go back to this process briefly and just continue to add more of that teal and green onto my background until it's all pretty much covered and ready to go. And then of course I'll set that aside to dry. So there you can see what that looks like when it's all finished, and it is dry now. And I am going to take just a 1/2 inch off 2 sides so that I do end up with a paper that's 11 inches by 11 inches. So, I should say 11.5 inches by 11.5 inches. So I'm going to take 1/2 inch off 2 sides. So I have an 11.5 inch square paper. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I decided that I wanted to frame the layout in with a piece of black cardstock. And that is the new tonic trimmer from Tim Holtz. It is wonderful. I highly recommend it. I love it so much. Now this is just a piece of American Crafts textured black cardstock. And you can see now that's just going to give me a nice 1/4 inch border around the whole layout. So I'm just again going in with my papers, trying to decide for sure what order I want to put these in on my white background. And I'm thinking as I'm looking at it that I might actually want to put the teal at the top and at the bottom so that it kind of starts and finishes with the teal color. I'm just taking my paper distressing tool here, and I am going to just rough up the edges of all of the different 4 strips of paper. And I'm just going to do that here quickly. And I just really like how this just adds a little bit of extra texture to the edges of the paper. It only takes a second to do. You can do this with some scissors as long as the scissors aren't too sharp. If the scissors are quite sharp, it will quite possibly tear the paper. You could also just use your fingernail for this as well. Or if you have the paper distressing tool, it does work really well. Now I'm just going to trim off the excess off the ends of each one of these 12-inch strips so that they are going to be the same width as my white paper. And once I'm finished that, now you can just see the order. I've taken a piece of white cardstock, and I believe this is 6 inches by 8 3/4. And that is just going to be where my photos are going to go. So I just kind of wanted to have a white background for that, just to really frame out the focal point for my photos. My photos are just slightly smaller than 4x3, and that black mat is 4x3. So I've got 2 photos that I've printed in black and white there. This is a, it used to be called We Are Memory Keepers. I think now it's just, I'm forgetting, but I think you know what I mean. And I will try to find this border punch, and I will link up to it in the description box below. But I am creating this eyelet border for 4 pieces of paper here, 4 strips. And that's just from some textured white cardstock. I am going to adhere those to each one of my pattern paper strips just for a little bit more detail. And again, all of these different little details really do add to the project. And I just really love using border punches. I think that they're a great tool. I will never get rid of my punches from my craft room. I know I often see people destashing, and I think sometimes it's a case of you don't have enough room to store them, and maybe you're not using them. But I do have a shoe pocket storage container that I store mine in on the back of a door. So there you can see I added some stitching to the edge of that scallop where the scallop meets the pattern paper. And I'll just trim off the excess there, and then there I've got each one of the strips, and you can just see how lovely the scallop is on there. I think it just adds and makes it look just really pretty. So now what I did was I also stitched along the top edge, where the opposite of the scallop edge, with my sewing machine as well. And that actually, what that does is it really helps to flatten out the white paper. Once you've added that mixed media, the sewing really helps to flatten that out. And I'm going to just rough up and pick up the edges a little bit more of the pattern paper. And then you can see how nice that looks on the black 12x12. And then that black behind the photos really makes the photos pop. And so I'm going to add some foam adhesive onto the backs of each of the photos. This is the Scrapbook.com foam tape. It's 1 inch wide, and I believe it's 2 millimeters thick. It is fantastic for card making and scrapbooking. I love it. And so I'm going to add a little bit of liquid adhesive onto the back of it just to allow me to wiggle it around and get it into place. And now I've adhered the photos onto the mats. And they've just got a little bit more dimension in that way without adding too much dimension. And so I'm really liking how this is looking, and I'm ready to start to assemble parts of my layout. This is a Scrapbook.com permanent tape runner. It's fantastic. I will link up, like I said, to all of these different things if you're looking for any of these products. And I'm going to also use a little bit of my Barely Arts glue around the edge also, just to make sure that this is going to really stay stuck to that black paper. So once I've got that done, I am going to just take a moment to, and I will get my head right over top of this, so I do that off camera so that you're not looking at my head, but I did take the time to just make sure that I do have that centered. And now I'm just finding the center of the layout and then the center of that white paper. I really want to get this white paper where the photos are going to be centered on the project. It's a pretty linear layout in many ways, so I just want to make sure things are straight. Now I did apply that same foam tape onto the back of this white piece. And again, I'm going to add a little bit of liquid adhesive. And that's just going to give me a chance to wiggle this into place before the foam tape really grabs. It's just a really good tip for being able to, make sure that things aren't going to go where you don't want them. And because once that foam tape is stuck, let's face it, it's stuck. So I'm just taking a second to make sure I have that position properly. I'm going to give it a really good press. And then what I did was I cut a piece of textured white cardstock, which is the same as I cut with the scallop border punch. And I just overlaid it over top of the white paper that I had previously laid down there. And now I'm ready to start adding my details. This is a die from Simon Says Stamp. That die is called Grand Corner Leaves. It is beautiful. I highly recommend it. And I've cut it from both white and black cardstock to embellish with. And then I just picked a bunch of different die cuts from the different ephemera packs to embellish. So I'm going with a large butterfly on each of the diagonal corners. And then those corners are going to be where I'm adding all of the different embellishments. Now I did take a journaling card and I've journaled on that. And then I'm going to use the glitter alphas to create the title Love, and that just fits perfectly at the top of that journaling card. And then there will be a subtitle at the bottom of the layout. You'll see that here in a minute. So I'm just going to take a moment to make sure that I get these alphas on here straight. And it's really nice. There actually is a line that I can follow as a guide on the top of that journaling card, which is super helpful when you're trying to be very straight with anything. And I really like the color of these alphas. I think they're beautiful. So that's just going to really pop off the top of that journaling card. And right now I'm just kind of looking at the placement of everything, and now I'm going to start to commit and get everything glued down. So I did put the butterfly on with some foam adhesive. I am going to add those die cut leaves with foam adhesive as well. One thing I highly recommend when you're working on a scrapbooking layout, if you do have dies, metal dies in your stash, especially if you're a card maker too, like me, I have so many dies, and I really like to try to incorporate those as much as possible into my scrapbooking because they definitely are an investment and they can be used in so many ways. Die is a very versatile product to have in your stash. And it's something that I try as often as I possibly can to use. Sometimes if I'm working for a company or I'm doing a project that the product I use has to be very specific, I can't always dive into my stash and use things like that. But when I'm making something just for myself and it's not like a deadline or something for someone else, I do really, really love to just dive into my dies and see what I can incorporate into my projects. I think it's just a really great way to use your stash, use your collection, and get your money's worth out of all of the products that you have. I think it's really important. So I'm just going in again here, like you can see, and just adding these details and trying to create as much dimension without adding too much dimension to this layout. When I purchase a binder for my scrapbooking layouts, I often find that the dimension that I add, oftentimes what will happen is I can only fit the number of projects into that album as there are page protectors, if that makes sense. So usually when you buy a 12 by 12 binder, it comes with page protectors. And what I find with my projects is that just that number of page protectors that are in there is what I can add to that binder because of the amount of dimension that I add. So when I'm creating, I try to be mindful not to create too much dimension, but I do really like the looks of it. So I try to add some dimension for sure. Now that little strip that I'm adding there is off of one of the cut apart sheets in the 8x6 paper pad. And you can see how I've also used one of the vellum flowers from the ephemera pack there. It's that really pretty pink flower that it's at the bottom on the right. I love that. I wish I had about 100 of those. They are absolutely stunning. And there's a little bit of gold foiling on there as well. And so now I'm just taking a look at it and seeing what else I might want to add. I did take one of the cut aparts from the 8x6 paper and I used I believe a 2-inch punch to cut out this circle. And that is going to create a little subtitle at the bottom. It says "Life is Sweet." And that's just going to fit perfectly in with that little cluster at the bottom. I am trying to make the cluster at the bottom a little bit heavier than the one at the top. And so you'll see that there are a few more details at the in the cluster at the bottom. I did add a little flower that says you and me just to the left of the butterfly at the top, but you can see that I'm creating this diagonal line through the photos, and that's just creating that focal point with the photos. I've added a few little enamel dots and a couple of other little flowers in that bottom cluster there. And for the most point, I'm thinking this is pretty much done, but I'm just looking at it and seeing what else I might want to add. And then, of course, you know, the white splatter is going to come. You all knew that was going to happen, right? So I'm going to just cover up anything that has words on it. I'm covering up my photos. Anything that I don't want white splatter on, I have put a little bit of Dina Wakley white gloss spray on my mat. And now I'm just going in with a small brush and adding just a small amount of white splatter. I don't want too much. I don't want to go too crazy, but just that little bit that's going to add that little bit of extra interest and texture to the project. It really kind of brings everything together to one cohesive unit when you have that splatter. And I actually could have added gold splatter as well, would have looked really pretty on this as well, but I just use the white to finish it off. So once that's all done, that's going to finish off my layout today. I hope you enjoyed this, friends. The April and Ivy collection from American Crafts is absolutely gorgeous. I will link to this in the description box below. So if you click those links, I do get a small commission at no extra cost to you. Please make sure that if you like my channel, you subscribe and you like this video. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for stopping by today. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I really, really hope that you get crafty in your space very soon. If you've got any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to leave me a comment in the comment section below the video. Have an amazing day, friends, and I will see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.